Lego Batman. To many is a gaming classic, and to many more, Lego Batman was their introduction to the world of the Dark Knight. Granted, I've been a Batman fan every day of my life, but as far as my earliest memories of the Caped Crusader, Lego Batman the video game was where it all really began. And seeing as the release of the Batman is upon us and I'm most likely going to do a review on it once I've seen it a few more times, I needed to satisfy my need to talk about one of my favorite characters in all of fiction. And that's what led me here today. Sure, we all know about the quality of the Arkham games, but Lego Batman has always stood out in my mind not just as a great Lego game, but as a great Batman game in general, and I wanted to take a look back to see if it really did hold up, and if it was worth still playing to this day. Hello, my name is Nicholas, but it's Nick for short. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite games of all time. Everybody, this is Lego Batman, a game greater than the sum of its pieces. Firstly, in these video essays, I like to cover the story of games I review, but seeing as it's quite simplistic here, I want to focus on how the story is told rather than the narrative itself. It's a tale as old as time. Batman's greatest foes have escaped Arkham Asylum and are now wreaking havoc on the citizens of Gotham City. Now it's up to the dynamic duo to put a stop to these treacherous threats and throw them behind bars once more. Nothing particularly special, but let's take a look at these villains more closely. The game is structured into 3 campaigns, each one covering a different team led by 3 different villains respectively. First up is the Riddler, who leads a band of people with more complex goals than most. The Riddler wants to prove his intelligence over Batman while getting rich along the way. Two-Face, the failed district attorney, lives and dies by the coin. Poison Ivy wants justice for her world of greenery, and Mr. Freeze, consumed by rage of his and his wife's condition, attacks the city of Gotham. Oh yeah, and Clayface is just kind of here. And taking a step back to the team grouping as a whole, let's check out Penguin and Joker's crews. The Penguin is surrounded by feathered friends, you might say, each one resembling some kind of animal, except Bane, but he's written out of the story very early on. The Joker squad I find particularly intriguing, as it took me a minute to figure out what their link was. Unlike Riddler's group of grand schemers, or Penguin's animal-oriented henchmen, the Joker surrounds himself with misfits of society. Killer Moth, Scarecrow, Mad Hatter, Harley Quinn, each one of them is some kind of crazed lunatic who is motivated simply by their want to hurt others, or in some cases, hurt others the way they've been hurt. Except for Harley, because we all know that she's just simping for the Joker. Now, obviously, these topics aren't elaborated on given their darker nature, but one of my favorite aspects of this game is how it relays the villains' backstories before every mission. Structured like a mission briefing, it gives you the basic rundown on each villain's backstory before you face them. It allows you to familiarize yourself with the Batman mythos. It's an incredibly simple yet effective way to help bring in new fans to the world of Batman, or reintroduce fans of the Burton films or the animated series. And the Batman world that this game creates is one of my favorite pieces of the game's design work. Typically, I like to handle gameplay after the story section, but I genuinely believe that the world that this game creates and the presentation behind it makes this go from a simple children's game to a memorable experience, so let's cover this first. To demonstrate what I'm trying to say is with something like LEGO Star Wars, you recognize these locations from the film. It's obviously Star Wars, so there was a much greater focus on the LEGO twist on the films, but LEGO Batman takes a different route. Rather, LEGO Batman has a wholly original story, with level setups limited only by Traveler's Tales' imaginations. However, this method does come with some potential risks. Mischaracterization, a misunderstanding of the source material. Overall, a whole lot of mishaps could happen, but it's clear with how the game turned out that the developers had so much passion for the source material. As said previously, this game expertly adapts the best of what Batman has to offer, and here's a few ways how. To start off with, the cutscenes. Never in my life have I loved Tim Drake as much as I do here. By no means is this the definitive interpretation of the character, but Robin's shenanigans keep things interesting throughout, and to watch him try to act tough to compensate for his fear is frankly adorable. Batman, I appreciate being serious as ever, often dismantling his foes' brick-built schemes without breaking a sweat, but still, he takes the time to give Robin a smile. And to see Batman crack a smile is just honestly extremely refreshing. Too often, whenever reinterpreting the Batman character, too much focus is placed on his vengeance, whenever it's often forgotten that he has an entire family of his own, the Bat family. Batman is supposed to be a symbol of fear, yes, but only to the criminals, as he is supposed to bring hope to the citizens of Gotham that he is out there watching over them. That's something that the animated series got perfectly, and that's something that this game adapts from the animated series, and it is frankly amazing to see. As for the antagonist of the story, some villains get it better than others in terms of screen presence, but the likes of Poison Ivy, Catwoman, and of course the Joker are behind some of the best bits of comedy the game has to offer. This game was back in the voiceless era of LEGO, and to say the visual comedy and slapstick is fantastic would be an understatement worthy of putting you in a cell in Arkham Asylum. One of my favorite jokes in the entire game is when Batman and Robin enter the sewers to chase Killer Croc, and they're met with some overgrown reptiles. When confronted, Robin jumps back, ready for action, swinging his fist in the air, but Batman simply gives the crocodile a stern grunt and sends that crocodile running. Little things like that persist throughout the entire game, making this truly an unforgettable experience. After all this time, I still remember all these jokes and chuckle every time. As for the look of the game, I think it's one of the best looking LEGO games ever created. Not because of the graphical quality per se, but because of the expert design behind the environments. Look at this moonlit city skyline, and the desolate sewers under the city, or the colorful run-down Gotham City Zoo. Change the characters' models and you've got yourself a gorgeous Batman game with no LEGO gimmicks attached. Yes, this is a LEGO game, but make no mistake, this is a Batman game first and foremost. The LEGO aspect is supplemental, and all the game's visuals are accompanied by the definitive music to represent the shadow of the night. Danny Elfman's composition from both Batman 89 and Batman Returns are here in full swing to prove once again they are the true essence of Batman in musical form. That's not to discredit any other Batman-oriented film or game scores. I especially love the score for the Batman, but Danny Elfman's theme is just as iconic as John Williams' Superman theme. But of course, this is a game after all, so it's about time I get to the gameplay itself. This is a LEGO game plain and simple, but for the sake of formalities, let's cover things from the top. In LEGO Batman, a couple of the universal mechanics are the basic jump, attack, and with some characters you can extend your jump with either double jumps or dive maneuvers. Across the levels, you will need to solve countless conundrums encountering the Caped Crusader. Some as simple as breaking everything in the room and building objects to help you progress, or in the case of Batman and Robin, you get access to exclusive gadgets and suits. For all of the Bat family players, you can use grappling hooks to climb up to higher ledges, but more excitingly, they have alternative costumes. The duo gathers themselves quite the noteworthy wardrobe over the course of the adventure. Both Batman and Robin get 4 suits respectively. Upon unlocking them, Batgirl can use Batman's attire, and the same for Nightwing with Robin's suits, making free play a treat, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Batman has the Demolition Suit, which delivers remote-controlled detonations capable of destroying steel objects. The Glide Suit allows him to travel longer distances while airborne. The Sonic Suit, because with this channel, of course I found some way to incorporate Sonic into the video, has a gun that allows you to destroy glass. And the Heat Protection Suit, which allows you to touch red-hot objects. Although I think the suit variation with Batman is strong, the game heavily relies on the Demolition and Glide Suits. The puzzle-solving capabilities brought to the table with the Heat Protection and Sonic Suit add such a fun variety to the gameplay. And they walk circles around blowing up metal or gliding across a canyon for the 1000th time. Using the Sonic and Heat Protection Suit, they definitely could have incorporated a lot more variety with the puzzles whenever you're controlling Batman. Factor in the awesome designs both suits have, and we have 2 incredibly underused outfits. Unfortunately, although I love Robin's outfits, I feel like they can be far too situational whenever it comes to puzzle solving. That being said, whenever they are used, they're easily some of my favorite puzzles in the game. His tech suit adds lots of fun minigames to puzzle solving, and as a competitive swimmer, his aquatic gear is just awesome to see. His magnet suit is pretty visually cool, still a little overused for my taste, but fun nonetheless. But his hazard suit is easily the weakest of the game. It's just a giant backpack, and you suck up pieces off the ground to put into a machine. That is incredibly lame, just being honest here. But fortunately, at least the developers only used that one sparingly. Other than standard levels, each of the 3 stories has a unique vehicle level. The Batmobile, Batboat, and Batwing all have more or less the same control. I remember dreading these in the past, but perhaps I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed during my youth because these levels weren't mind-blowing, but were nevertheless a refreshing change of pace from the standard running and punching. They offer challenges and puzzles entirely unique to them, and are short bursts of fun that don't overstay their welcome, and have some of the most unique boss fights in the entire game. Penguin's submarine, the Two-Face chase, and Scarecrow's biplane are all just incredibly fun boss fights. I don't know what it is about them, I think that it just really adds this sense of spectacle battling in these vehicles. Most other boss fights boil down to a simple waiting game or building contraptions to help aid in you taking your enemies down. Personally, I'd say the worst boss fights are easily Harley Quinn and Killer Croc, simply waiting with no real challenge. A few of the best, in my opinion, are Mr. Freeze, the Penguin and Catwoman team-up, and of course, the final conflict with Joker and Harley. So overall, the control is extremely fun. Movement is tight as responsive on the ground and in a vehicle. Combat is simple but free-flowing and satisfying, and the grapple and suits add tons of fun variation to the standard mobility. But control only means so much if the levels aren't designed well, and luckily, this game has great level design in spades. In order to illustrate the best of what this game has to offer, let's cover my favorite level from each campaign. The opening level is one of the greatest in LEGO gaming history. Immediately, it presents you with the main path, a side objective, and enemies. You quickly learn how to break apart your foes and take notice of the alleyway. After breaking some object and discovering stud currency, you unlock a mini-kit establishing collectibles, and then finally, you get onto the main path. In one simple screen, the game has now taught you everything that you need to know. Combat, destroying and building objects, secret unlockables, collecting studs for currency, and now, you're ready to play the game. Next up, Killer Croc Sewers is easily one of the best levels whenever it comes to costume integration. Suit multitasking per character and takes full advantage of the setting to make unique gimmicks and challenges based around the environment. It is frankly an amazing level, one of my favorites in the entire game. And this level is responsible for introducing me to one of my favorite Batman villains of all time, the Killer Moth stage. I'm not even sure what it is about this level. Maybe it's the way Killer Moth taunts you, incentivizing you to go further. It could be the overall level construction, having you go across both the streets and rooftops of Gotham City. Or maybe it's this disco area, where everyone just starts busting a move on the dance floor. It's probably all of the above now that I'm saying it out loud.
Our top story tonight, a quirked-up white boy with a little bit of swag bust-down sexual style. Is he goated with the sauce?
And I would absolutely like to clarify, I have no idea why I love Killer Moth so much, but his characterization and design in this game has made him one of my favorite Batman villains of all time. A few honorable mentions in terms of how great the designs are is definitely the Man-Bat and Catwoman levels. They are absolutely phenomenal. But I did mention Lego studs, and just like every other Lego game, there are tons of collectibles in the form of trophies, mini-kits, and unlockable characters and vehicles. Personally, I've never been huge on collecting extras to 100% a Lego game, but with this one, I just can't resist. I simply had to make this childhood dream come true. Plus, nothing is more satisfying than running around the awesome hub of the Batcave and going up to the elevator to Wayne Manor to see the fruits of my labor. At the time of writing this, I don't know if I fully completed the game, but I'll show off what I have so far. Well, surely the game's over, right? I mean, you put all the villains back in Arkham Asylum, so the night is saved and the citizens of Gotham can rest easy once more. Or at least, that's what you'd normally think. Another big reason of why I wanted to make this video is because, as I've said several times, this game is a fantastic adaptation of Batman for all ages. And it's clear to see that's because of the developers' love for Batman, and there's no way to prove this better than this one simple fact. Lego Batman has an entirely different hub in Arkham Asylum, which contains an entirely different set of campaigns from the villain's perspective. Nowadays, this would be paid DLC made for greedy business reasons, or a full-blown sequel. But just because the developers care, there's an entire second game to play through, and I won't spoil it here for any of my younger viewers who are just considering picking the game up. But trust me, it's just as high quality as the hero campaign. It makes replaying levels more enjoyable than ever in free play mode, the mode in which you get to play any character you want throughout the levels. This was going to be a segment of the video in which I cover the DS version of the game, but after playing one level, I think I've seen what the game has to offer. Let's not dodge the fact the DS wasn't exactly the most powerful system out there, although graphically and presentation-wise, I think the DS version does look good for the system, but that doesn't stop the gameplay from feeling very rigid. The control feels stiff, levels claustrophobic, and the puzzles are far simpler. Being honest, this is not a game I would recommend checking out. It was suitable for the time and a fine attempt of bringing the game to the DS, but the DS version of Lego Batman just simply doesn't hold up. Lego Batman is an amazing game, genuinely. I will never think nostalgia is a bad thing, and as long as everyone is mature enough to acknowledge criticism and not be jerks about anyone's opinion, then I think that it's entirely reasonable to look back only with nostalgia on your mind. But when I make videos, I do my best to play games as if it was the first time I've ever done so. Playing Lego Batman, it doesn't really matter the perspective. If you're a Batman fan, Lego fan, newcomer, or replaying a childhood classic, I have confidence you'll get your money's worth with this title. Obviously, if you're older, then you know a lot about which Batman media to consume, I'm sure, from the Dark Knight trilogy and everything like that, but if you have any younger viewers and you don't want to get them into something so complicated and violent, this is an excellent place to start your Batman journey. And that's not to put down this game's quality. If you're already a Batman fan, or just casual and kind of want to have a good time and learn a few things about Batman, this is also a great game to do that with. It is frankly such a universally applicable way to get into Batman. And to think that it all stems from a Lego game, it's honestly just really impressive what the developers were able to do here. Nowadays on Steam, it only goes for $20, and considering the persisting quality of this package, I think it's more than worth that. Fair warning though, this game can show its age, and I highly recommend that you turn VSync on immediately, otherwise the game can get a bit glitchy. And I did still run into some technical issues, but nothing that required a soft reset. It was mainly controller disconnection or getting stuck for a second before jumping out of it. Lego Batman the video game came out at a time I wish I was old enough to remember. On a personal note, I remember looking back at tons of sets from the era, but I was firmly in the second wave brought about by the Lego Batman 2 video game. Heck, to this day, I still pick up minifigures from this point in time, because although I can't really buy any sets still in the box, I love the minifigure designs of this era. And honestly, it's just really cool being able to own these relics that I've dreamed of having since I was a kid. This isn't a selling point, but to me it's something I wanted to mention because I do have a lot of memories and nostalgia for this game and this era of Lego Batman. I cannot thank you enough for watching this retrospective video, and I intend on covering LEGO Batman 2 and 3 in the coming future. That being said, I cannot preface how worth LEGO Batman is as a video game, regardless of previous experience or not. LEGO Batman the video game has been, and continues to be, greater than the sum of its pieces.